Okay, we're live now. Welcome everyone to another Musiversal webinar. I'm very excited to have you guys here. I can see that we already have some people joining us, and that's awesome. So welcome everyone. Today we have Bruno Migliari here, our bass player and double bass player at Musiversal, and we're gonna talk a lot about music. But before we do that, and before Bruno introduces himself, I want to let you guys know about a couple of things. First of all, I want to say sorry for this live stream being a little bit late. We had a couple of technical issues that we had to deal with, but everything is fine now and everything is running smoothly, and we're gonna have a great session today. The second message that I want you guys to remember is that Unlimited is open now. So if you were on the wait list and you received an invitation, you can already join Musiversal Unlimited. You have until Monday to do so, and if I were you, I wouldn't wait until there because if you have music to make, I mean, you just might as well just start making some music, right? And I do know that there's a lot of people that just tell me, but Pedro, I have some songs that I'm doing, but I'm not sure if they're ready to record yet, and I'm not 100% sure. I'm like, sure, I completely understand that, and that's why you need to try a live musician in that song. A live musician might change everything. And since you have unlimited sessions, it doesn't hurt for you to try a musician, and then if you find out that that is not what you're looking for in your song, you can just book another session because you have unlimited sessions. So this is another way for you to produce music and be more productive making music, more effective making music. So if I were you, I would totally try that. But now, without further ado, I'm gonna introduce Bruno. How are you doing today, Bruno?
I'm fine, man. After seven sessions on Unlimited today, here I am. Yeah,
Busy day. How were the
busy
sessions?
day. Oh, all of them were great, and it's very interesting because being on the other end of this deal, I'm kind of I'm exposed to a variety, a tremendous variety of styles and people from different backgrounds, culturally and professionally or not, and this is very interesting. Yeah, I love the experience.
I imagine. And before we go and talk about music itself and how to record itself, like you've been like you had like 7 sessions a day. Are your days always full like that?
Well, right now I'm doing that from Mondays to Thursdays, so 4 days, 7 sessions per day between unlimited and studio. But on studio I do like 8 sessions, I think, and the other all the other sessions are for unlimited.
That's awesome. Well, as you can see, Bruno is one of our busiest musicians, and there's a reason for that because he's a great musician, and people want to record because he's awesome. So, if you haven't recorded with Bruno yet, I would totally advise you to because it's really a great experience. And if you have seen our past webinars, you probably recognize Bruno because he was recording bass in actual contrabass in our electric bass in a past webinar. So you probably recognize his face. And but today we're gonna talk about double bass and the many different applications that a double bass might have. So Bruno, can you tell me a little bit about double bass? Just give like a short introduction before we start recording. Because
Sure.
when I think about double bass, I think about two things exclusively. I think about orchestras, and I think about a like an old jazz band on a Disney animation and a dude just going at it.
Yeah, it works pretty well on those two circumstances you just mentioned, but it can do much more than that. And these days, I see the double bass being used in almost any style, from hip hop to even rock. There was a guy here in Musiverse, a user in Musiversal that was booking me for doing covers of classic rock bands like Deep Purple, Uriah Heep, and Status Quo, and that stuff, AC/DC, but he wanted to do acoustic versions of that. So I played on a lot of classic rock tracks with the double bass, just to mention that I mean it's all wide open nowadays with technology. I mean, if you have a decent microphone and a good instrument, and of course you know how to play the instrument, you can. Yeah, I mean, there are certain limitations that go both ways between the double bass and the electric bass. But the one thing to consider is that most people think that the double bass goes lower, is a heavier, uh, like bottom end heavy instrument, and goes lower in terms of sound than the electric bass. That's not true. They have exactly the same range. So an electric bass is tuned like G, D, A, E, like from first to fourth string. First string like the double bass, D, A, E. It's tuned in fourths, just like the electric bass, and it has the exactly the same practical range. What I mean by that is, if anything, the double bass can go than the electric bass, but it doesn't go lower than a regular four-string electric bass. A regular Fender bass, the lowest note on a Fender bass is an E, or any bass, any four-string bass. It's a low E, which in a piano it's the first E, the E1. It's this, and the electric goes. Goes, this is the highest note on the electric bass, an E flat. So this is E flat 4. It's the highest note on the electric bass. As you see, I have still a long way to go till I reach my limit here. So the double bass can go higher than the electric bass.
Oh
So
wow.
that's the one thing that people think in reverse. They think that the double bass goes lower. No, it doesn't. It has the same practical range. And what's considered to be the practical range is up to this C here. So of course I can play higher than that, but usually for practical reasons and for orchestration purposes, because if you want the bass to play up there all the time, it's not playing the role of a bass. It's not providing the low end. So 90% of the time you're gonna be I'm playing here on the money zone of the bass. All right, this is where this is the area where I pay my bills. Is right here, and then here I kind of get creative and artistic, and here I kind of overdo it and you know reach out for. I mean, boldly go where no man has gone before, as I reach for the upper limits of the instrument. But it's pretty much the same thing. I mean, you deal with it as you would with the electric bass. The same in quotes problems regarding writing for both the electric bass and the double bass start with the fact that most people don't know that both instruments, the electric bass and the double bass, are an octave transposing instruments. That means that whatever note you have written on paper for the double bass is gonna sound an octave lower than what's written. So if you want this note to ring, an F sharp 1, you're gonna write an F sharp 2. You're gonna actually write that note on the bass clef, and it's gonna sound like this. It's the same thing with the guitar. Both the acoustic guitar and the electric guitar, they are also octave transposing.
If it wasn't
So
like that, you would be using like a lot of ledger
yeah,
lines. It would
lots
be
of leisure lines.
impossible
Yeah,
to read.
exactly, and that's what happened to me today. I got a fully composed bass line, great bass line, by the way. I don't know if the user is here, but I had a great time playing his line. But it was written everything written an octave higher, so it was kind of awkward to read. Lots of lines, so it's very impractical. So you have to keep that in mind. By the way, guys, I uploaded to this. I mean, I not here, but on this on
Circle,
Circle.
yes.
I upload. I don't know if if I can redo do the same thing here, or do people have access to that Circle link? Because I
Yes.
uploaded a couple of interesting files for you, for whoever is interested in recording with the double bass. Give it a read first, because I explain in detail exactly what the range of the instrument is, how to write properly for the double bass, and some other interesting things. One technically, there's one thing that needs to be mentioned right away, is the fact that the double bass can be played either pizzicato, fingers, and with the bow. So there you go. It's almost like a different instrument if when played with the bow. So I mean, technically speaking, the instrument was designed to be played with the bow. It's from the violin family, so it's like the granddaddy of the violins. So you have violin, viola, cello, and the bass. And it's very interesting because I hear it so many times that whenever I pick up the bow, somebody play, "Yo, you're gonna play the cello?" No, man, it's this. I'll say, no, it's still the same instrument as the double bass. I'm just picking up my bow. It didn't change into a cello. Cello plays almost an octave higher than the double bass. I mean, if I had a 5 string bass, I could say that I'm playing an octave lower than the cello because it's the same note. But anyway,
That's
I'm digressing.
awesome. Yeah, well, that's awesome. Like, that's a lot of information, and it helps us a lot. And guys, if you want to check out the material that Bruno made available for you, and I really think you should, you can join our Circle community, and all the files are available there. If you have joined our Circle community, you know how to get there. If you haven't, you totally should, because we have a lot of musicians there, a lot of users there just talking about music, sharing knowledge. You get to see the next webinars that are going to happen there, and you're going to have access to all these files. I just put the link in the description, in the comments here at this live stream. So if you want to join our Circle community, you just click on that link. It's free and is more than available. And Bruno, thank you so much for preparing those materials for us. You're always bringing those things for our webinars, and these are really, really valuable,
All
especially for
right.
everyone that is learning. It's like for me, like I'm learning how to write for that kind of instrument.
Uh huh.
So it's cool. By the way, I would love to get your feedback on the score that I wrote for you. It's a very, very short score, but I'm not sure if I wrote it correctly.
It
How is
seems
that
to be.
looking?
It looks fine, man. I'm gonna play what you just wrote. It's in pizzicato, so it's. Oh, sorry. Is it the range you're expecting to hear, or you wanted it to be an octave lower?
I actually was expecting that, but I'm curious to hear how it would sound an octave lower.
Well, the second note wouldn't be available because it's a C sharp below that. But anyway, I'm gonna adapt. Oh, sorry. This is
Interesting.
in the lowest range, and like exactly like you wrote it, it's.
Yes, this is what I was intending, but I really like the other way around. Can we experiment with both in the recording?
Sure, absolutely.
Awesome. Are you ready to record? You want to share your screen and start this?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So, guys, if you're watching this right now live, you can join Audio Movers to listen to this recording. Audio Movers is going to stream the audio with much, much better quality than YouTube. So, the link is in the comments, and the password is in the comments as well. You just click there, and you'll be able to listen to the audio stream coming directly from Bruno's microphones. And If you don't want to join Audio Movers and see that, you can keep uh, listening here on YouTube, and you'll be able to listen to everything, of course, with a little bit less quality than Audio Movers. So, without further ado, Bruno, I'm gonna mute myself so you don't. I mean,
All
you
right.
have to mute me so you don't listen to me twice,
Oh yeah, you're right.
and we can start recording.
Let me just do that. I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna need both hands to do the trick. All right. Here we go. I looped the session, the section of the song that we're gonna record, as I usually do when doing sessions for Musiversal, because this way we don't waste too much time between takes. If I know I did committed a mistake or something, I don't need to stop and go back, rewind, as as in the old tape days. So here I go. I'm gonna start recording, and this is how it sounds. One detail. I played the two first passes with what we call pizzicato, jazz pizzicato technique, with a very full sound. Now I'm gonna play a few passes playing pizzicato classical style, which is a completely different sound. Now, just for you guys to have an idea how the bass sounds with the bow, I'm gonna play the same passage with a bow, uh, staccato style, which is like short notes, like that. Now, still with the bow, but longer notes, fuller sound. All right, I'm gonna go back and unmute Pedro because
Confirm what's going
let's
on.
confirm what's going on. You
Hear
guys
what I
could
was
hear what I
playing
was playing
properly.
properly.
Yeah, we were hearing everything, and
And how did that sound? Did it
that
come through
sounds
nice?
yes, that sounded amazing, and it's really interesting how the difference between the jazz pizzicato and the orchestral pizzicato. Like, are you kind of muting the string when you're doing
Not
orchestral?
really. What happens is this, because when you're playing a pizzicato passage with the orchestra, usually still holding the bow with your hand. So this is what you do. You hold it with two fingers against the palm of your hand, and liberate your index and middle finger to play the pizzicato passage. But as the pizzicato is Italian for what's the word in English? Uh, in Portuguese we say beliscar, but I really forgot.
Pinch.
Pinch, exactly. Pinch the note. So it's like as if you were actually pinching the notes with both fingers, but actually we don't use both fingers, just one. And so it's a short sound. Notes tend to be short but very resonant. So and when you're playing on a jazz band or a pop band or whatever, you want to go for a rounder and more sustained sound. So the technique is completely different. Still using two fingers most of the time. Sometimes you're using just one, but you're hitting the notes with almost with the side of the more flash you put in contact with the string, the rounder a sound you get. So this is how it would sound with the proper jazz technique. So by playing that way, you get the notes to sustain much longer, which is not what you want on a classical context, because pizzicato an orchestration technique that aims at a very delicate sound. So you don't want that the notes to be too boomy. It's the other way around. You want them to sound just like almost like a glockenspiel or vibraphone. Bing, boom, boom, boom. Very delicate.
Sounds awesome. Right before we go, can you stop sharing your screen? Because I just realized that
Absolutely.
we're people
It's
are seeing an infinite
yeah, it's
versions
an
of us.
infinite version. Yeah, exactly.
Uh, but that's really interesting. And now one thing that I have a question with is how many other like options of sounds do we have? Because I've the little I know about orchestration, and I've heard of some things like the Bartok pizzicato.
Uh
How
huh.
does that sound in the bass? Are there any other ways of making like types of textures and sound that we can explore with the double
There
bass?
are, I mean, as far as there are so many bow strokes that you can available for us with the instrument, because most of the time you're dealing with, well, just speaking of note length with a bow you can almost go for infinite sustain. Notes will last as long as you hold them, and changing dynamics unless you want to. I can make a note go softer. And just by changing a bow position, if this is a regular bow position, but I can play sul tasto, which is over the fingerboard, for a more dark sound. with less high end, and the other way around. If you go towards the bridge sul ponticello, it has a very uh, full of high end. Is a raspier sound. So you're gonna listen more. There will be more of the bow hair element to it. So it gets a little grainy, the sound, because of the bow hair being. We usually use like how do you call it? I forgot the name. It's bow rosing. So we use that for friction, and when it melts down, it's kind of a very thin sand. So that's what makes that raspy sound. And of course, you can use the bow to produce like uh, that kind of sound. It's very eerie, right? It's kind of so with the
Spooky.
bow you can yeah, spooky, and you can be very rhythmic with staccato bow strokes, which is when you get the bow to bounce off the strings. And you asked about the Bartok pizzicato. Bartok pizzicato is actually slapping the strings against the fingerboard. And there's also the the Bartok bow stroke, which is also percussive. You hit the strings with a wooden part of the bow instead of the bow hair, like. It's it's kind of heavy metal applied to
Right?
classical music, but that's it.
It's the metallic of classical music. I like that. And I've heard that this is like a kind of a gossipy thing, but I've heard that usually orchestra music, classical musicians don't like playing that because that can damage the instrument or the bow.
Yeah, it damages
Uh,
the bow. If you do it too much, it can even break your bow. It's not really. It's not safe. It's not a safe technique.
it's not
Not
a
if you
safe
love your
technique.
bow, as I do. Actually, I'm looking here to see if I did something. No, no, it's okay.
Okay, so can we just record what we just recorded 150 times doing Collegno only? I'm just kidding.
Oh yeah, if you have a new bow for me, I'll do it. I'll do it
Uh,
right away.
and speaking of the bow, I actually have a question because I look at the bow and it looks a little bit different from a violin bow or a cello bow. What is is there a difference, or is just
Yes.
you're a very stylish guy and you have a stylish bow?
No, no. This is a very good bow, by the way. I mean, in Brazil, there's a archetier. It's the technique or a luthier that builds bows. Comes from the French, and this is a French. It's French style bow because for double bass there are two kinds of bows. The French school, which is just like you hold it just like a cello bow or a violin bow, like this, and the German school, which is derivative from the da gamba family of instruments. Viola da gamba, violone. Those instruments were kind of evolved into the but because they play it vertically, just like the cello. But the bow that was used in those days was held like this, but this here. So this makes sense when you're dealing with gravity, because you're able to have more strength to pull your arm weight against the strings, maybe better with this approach. but then again, you're gonna produce a much less controlled sound and much more aggressive sound. So I prefer the French and Italian school, which is this, that allows you for a more controlled sound and more of a delicate result. And there's an interesting thing about the bows. The bigger the instrument, so
That's what I was gonna ask. Like
the
that's
violin
weird.
bow is longer. It's like this. Cello is like this, and bass is the shortest, but it's the heaviest. It's shorter, but it has more wood and more bow hair. Not yeah, less length, but more amplitude to the bow hair. So there you go. Because the strings are thicker, so you need to, in order to make them move, you need more hair and more rosing to
And
you
why
know.
are they shorter?
Well, there's one good reason for that is the fact that if they were too long, you wouldn't be, it, I, when you reach the limit of the instrument, there will be too much weight free there, and you wouldn't be able to sustain the angle with the bow, and towards the frog, which is this part of the bow, when you come to the limit of the instrument here, if it was too longer than this, I would start, you know, doing
Pulling away.
having
Yeah.
problem, yeah, problem compensating with my not elbow but with my shoulder down to keep the bow at the same length. So this is kind of a as a compromise between two. And also, since those strings are much heavier, they need to be stimulated more than violin strings and cello strings because they have more mass. So you need to, in order to keep them moving, you need to use more bow, because that's what makes the sound project. Is the movement of the bow. As long as you have bow hair against the string, there will be sound. When it ends, you need to either either start again from the same point or go in the opposite direction. So if you have a good technique, you can kind of mask the end of a note into the next one when you change direction. But if if it's soloed, it's gonna be perceptive, even if ever so slightly.
That makes a lot of sense. And Dawn is watching us right now, and she said she had no idea it could be played in so many ways, and she thanks you for sharing that, and
All
I
right,
thank you as well. And thank you, Dawn, for commenting that and being active in
right, great.
our live stream. We're happy to have. And if any of you guys watching, or Dawn, if you're watching as well, if you have any questions, please let us know. You have a very very professional musician here that knows every single answer of every single possible question, right?
I hope
So,
so, man.
I mean, we can just make it up. I'm just kidding. But yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. And if we don't know the answer, of course, we'll get back to you at a later date. But we have 15 minutes left, Bruno. And now that we're on this, almost at the end of our live stream today, I want to ask you a couple of things regarding your sessions and how do they
Sure.
work? Because we talked about your bass sessions or your electric bass sessions and how you liked receiving files for those sessions. How is that different for double bass, and what kind of files are you expecting from the clients? What helps you to make a better recording when recording double bass?
Well, there's not much of a difference between as far as preparation for the thing is, being the double bass being an orchestral instrument, many times I'm booked for soundtrack material for streaming series or video games and that kind of stuff, and it's like heavy orchestral music. And on those cases, I expect to receive a clear chart. You know, a good written bass part, respecting the octave thing. No ledger lines, please. And also, it's worth mentioning, we use the contrabass clef, which is the bass clef, the F clef, but an octave. If you work with a DAW like Logic, for instance, this clef is built in. So if you program a back when you're building up your arrangements inside the DAW, make sure to when you're creating a chart, make sure to use the proper clef. Instead of using just bass clef, use contrabass clef, because this is the actual transposing clef. By using this clef, you won't have to do anything. You just set, choose that clef, hit print, and it's gonna be in the right octave. It's gonna do the work for you. And also, when there's high-end passages, like for instance, if I'm to play a melody on this area of the instrument, it's better to write it on the treble clef, because this way there will be no leisure lines, and it's gonna be much easier to read, and it's gonna keep the transposition happening. You know, the octave transposition. I won't be reading those notes like in sky. You know, it's gonna be right here. So it's useful to switch from one clef to the other if you're dealing with music notation. For those of you who don't use music notation, you can always rely on the programs like Logic. Logic is the one I use, so that's why I'm not endorsed by Apple in any way, but it's the program I find musician friendly, and it's full of features that are very useful for musicians more than for audio engineers. So that's how I feel about Logic, and if you use that program, you can easily transform any MIDI content into a chart, into a score. So it's very I recommend using it. And also, it doesn't mean I mean this insistence of mine in the written notation. It has to do with classical instrumental music, perhaps maybe some jazz material that has it's it's very important to receive a well written chart. But if you're a singer songwriter and you want to feed me just an audio uh, song played with acoustic guitar and you singing on top of it, there's no problem whatsoever. I can just as easy from what I hear on the audio and come up with a bass line. In fact, I think today on my 7 sessions, I had two double bass sessions. One was a songwriter that came up with a song in a Latin style kind of thing, and there was no chart. No, there was a chord chart, but no written bass line. And there was, on the other hand, there was a very complete score for double bass as part of an orchestra. So one right after the other. So there's no problem. I mean, it really depends on the kind of material you're dealing with.
That's awesome. So you're comfortable improvising a bit and
Oh yeah.
creating stuff
Oh yeah,
with
definitely.
the clients.
Actually, I have a classical background because I graduated in music college and played this instrument in an orchestra there. But on the trenches, I'm much more used to playing jazz and funk, rock, and that kind of thing. So this instrument here has much more mileage in jazz clubs and jazz clubs and that kind of environment than on concert halls. Although I did a bit of both, but the jazz thing is where I come from really. So
That's
improvising
awesome.
is a big part of it.
Definitely. Um, and Don just said that you're an incredible improviser. So you probably they did a session with Don.
Oh yeah, a few.
That's awesome.
Not just one. Yeah.
And I see that you have more than one instrument there. What
Oh
is the
yeah,
difference?
there's another double bass there.
Right.
So this other double bass is a little. This one here is what we call a 3/4. It's because double basses have like different sizes, slightly different sizes. This is a 3/4, and that one is a 7/8. It's a full bass. It's not even available anymore. People don't build those basses anymore. But both instruments on your screen right now are like 120 years old or around that. And
Oh
this one
wow.
comes from Czechoslovakia or Czech Republic as it's called nowadays. And that one I'm not sure. Could be Czech too or maybe Italian. I don't know. But it's a 7/8. It's slightly bigger than this one. By bigger I mean it's just like 2 inches bigger. It's not really it's a huge difference. But this one, that one there is set for a lighter pizzicato touch, while this one here, which is my number one go-to instrument, it's set up in a way that I can play either pizzicato or with a bow. That one, it's more for pizzicato. If I had to play something very I mean, some orchestral passage with a bow there, I wouldn't be able to really dig in because the strings are much lower. It has a lower action, and this one here is more has more of a traditional setup.
That's awesome. We just got a question from David Gerhardt, which actually is part of Universal as well.
All right.
What happened to the full bass? Why are they not available anymore?
Well, I guess it was too big, because the full one is it's maybe it has a string length, perhaps like I don't know exactly, but probably I would say like 4 or 5 inches bigger than this one. But I mean, I would say yeah, a little longer, and so the instrument has a longer neck, and it's the volute is up there, and it's not practical, and it really doesn't. There's no need for such. I mean, a bigger instrument that doesn't really produce such very much of a bigger sound by comparison. So if you have the sound you want with a smaller instrument is better, right?
The difference is like not that.
No, it's not perceptible. I couldn't tell by listening to an instrument if it's a 3/4 or a 7/8, or it really doesn't make that much of a difference. It has much more to do with the actual resonant chamber of the instrument and the quality of the wood. So these days, instrument builders are doing even like half-size instruments, which are smaller and I mean, I wouldn't say easier to play because every instrument has its own difficulties and some things that come very natural for it. But it has a shorter scale length, but also has less of an acoustic sound output. So it's a compromise, If you want a big sound, you want a big instrument. So I wouldn't settle for something smaller than this. It's pretty much perfect for me. And I'm a short guy. I'm 170 meters, 1 meter 77 centimeters high, which is five
Five
five foot
seven
seven. Yeah, 5 foot 7.
something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
If we have any Americans here, let us know because we
yeah.
don't speak American.
Yeah, because 5 4 is kind. You have to do some math in your head, but I think it is. It's it's the
Uh,
same. Yeah.
that's really really interesting. I didn't know about the difference, and it's really impressive that you have like two instruments that are over 100 years old. Like how you're not concerned about dropping them all the time.
Well, actually, I have dropped this bass
Oh boy.
two times. This one,
Oh boy.
when I was starting out as a bass player with a double bass, I wasn't used to, carrying it around. So I was naive enough to lean it against my car while I reached for my amplifier that was inside, and it fell back. And as it falls back, the first thing to hit the ground is the voluta, which is the end of the neck, and it broke right here. And
Oh.
when it broke right here, the you know laws of physics made the neck dive into the what do you call it, the resonant chamber, and smash it. So it was a nightmare. But it happens. If you're the more you travel, the more mileage you get on an instrument, it's bound to happen, that kind of stuff. But
The more
it's
scars an instrument has, the more
yeah.
history.
This one, yeah, I gave it two scars with that, but it had already. When I bought it, I had no idea I was buying a very old instrument. I only found out later through my teacher at the time at music college. He said, "Man, you got yourself a great instrument without knowing it.
Oh wow.
If you ever decide to sell that bass, I want to buy it." He told me,
Wow.
and I was like, "Man, oh hell, I got lucky." And
Sometimes you
that
get
other
lucky, right?
instrument is on. Actually, it doesn't belong to me. It belonged to a good friend that lives in L.A. And Nando Duarte is a great acoustic guitarist, and also music composer, producer, orchestrator. And that bass belonged to his daddy, who used to be a famous bossa nova bassist. And when he moved to LA, he asked me to keep his bass. "Hey, can you keep it for me? You can use it on your studio." I said, "Oh, of course." And I had it set up for that, for pizzicato and jazz things, and that's why it's there.
That's awesome. I actually spoke with Nando Duarte. I think
Oh, you know him?
um,
All
a
right.
he's a Musiversal user if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
But
perhaps. Yeah. Or maybe
uh,
is it recent? Did it just join, or was it something from
I
before?
wish I could remember.
Oh.
But I remember speaking to him and I can see his face.
Uh
So
huh.
I know I talked to him regarding
Yeah.
Musiversal.
Cool.
And yeah, so we have a couple of minutes left, guys. So if anyone watching has any other questions, please let us know. If uh, while we're at it, I want to ask you, Bruno, if you have any last messages that you want to give people before they book a session with you, if there are any other tips or guidelines that you uh, think it would be effective and productive for them to follow.
Oh, I think that if anyone has access to the Circle link, go there and grab those files I put there, because they're a fantastic resource for thinking ahead and planning if you want to go with the electric bass or the double bass. For most of the things that are written for electric bass, and I mean as a starting point, can be played on the double bass. There's no excuse for not doing it, unless you wanna like, oh, I want you to play with a pick or a slap passage. No, those techniques pertain to the electric bass. But on the other hand, if you have like a melodic passage that you want to try out, go with the double bass and ask for it to be played with a bow, and you're gonna get fantastic results because it's very expressive. And even if you don't want to try the bow with regular pizzicato, it's a very expressive instrument. So for any songs containing like melodic passages, or any part of the song that has a melody for the bass to play, it's a good idea to try out with the double bass. And or the electric fretless bass, as a matter of fact, has the same capacities of, microtonalities, vibrato, and those techniques that are not as, they are available also for the electric bass, but they don't sound as dramatic as on a non-tempered instrument, because the double bass and the fretless bass and the violin, the cello, the the thing is that by not having frets, one note like extends into the other, and you can use that to your advantage by vibrating. So that kind of expressive, it's very natural for somebody playing the double bass. So if you're going for that kind of vibe, try out the double bass. Even if you first imagine your song with the electric bass in mind, it's worth trying.
That's awesome. And we have a question from Dawn, which is kind of a personal question. What is one of your favorite songs to play the double bass in?
What what is one of my favorite songs? Oh man, it's really hard to point out a favorite song because I have so many. I like playing that melody here from Wayne Shorter. Sorry. This is a song called "Infant Eyes," written by Wayne Shorter, saxophone player.
That sounds awesome. I hope
Yeah.
you guys enjoy that. So we're for our live stream. So Bruno, thank you so much for your time today, and thank you so much for this absolute masterclass that you sent us on the bass. That's just awesome, and I personally just can't wait to write more stuff with bass in it.
All right, man. It's been a pleasure. You can always count on me whenever you want to do live webinars. You know that.
Guy, I really, really appreciate that because you always definitely put on a show. And to everyone watching us right now, thank you so much for joining. We're very, very happy to have you here. If you have any further questions, we're available on Circle to help you guys out and just pretty much to talk about music as well. We're always there. And if you haven't joined Unlimited yet, the window is open until Monday. So take advantage of that and take the chance of recording music with some amazing musicians like Bruno. Thank you so much,
All right.
guys, and have a good night.
Thank you